My children and daughters-in-law wanted to keep everything at the time of the will reading. It was a cold Thursday morning when they all showed up. My children and their spouses. One by one, they walked into my house, dressed in black, like they were here for more than just the will. It felt fake. Daniel hugged me first, quick, tight, like he just wanted to get it over with. His wife, Julia, barely looked at me. She kept checking her phone. Then came Mark, tall, proud. He kissed my cheek and whispered, "Let's just get through this." His wife, Erica, gave me a smile so wide it almost made me nervous, like she already knew something good was coming. And last, Lisa, my only daughter. She hugged me the longest, held on like she meant it, but her husband, Tom, just nodded at me. No hug, no smile, just cold eyes. I sat down at the head of the table. The chair still smelled like Henry's cologne. He always said, "Let the will reflect who people really are." And now, I was about to see if he meant it. The lawyer, Mr. Bellamy, opened his briefcase. Everyone leaned forward, hands crossed, eyes sharp. I noticed how Daniel nudged Julia. She smiled, like she was expecting the house. Mark sat back, arms folded, like a king waiting for his crown. Lisa looked nervous, but hopeful. They all assumed they were getting everything, that Henry and I would just hand it all over, like it was candy. I stayed quiet, just watched. I've learned over the years, silence shows you who people really are. Mr. Bellamy cleared his throat. "We are here for the reading of the last will and testament of Henry James Whitmore." Julia actually whispered, "Finally." Mr. Bellamy read through the usual legal words. Then he paused. He looked confused. I leaned in. "Is something wrong?" He hesitated. "There was one more envelope, a sealed letter from Mr. Whitmore, but it's not in the file." It stopped. "What do you mean it's not in the file?" He checked again. His face went pale. "Henry told me about that letter, said it had the truth, said it would make everything clear. But now, it was gone. And suddenly the room didn't feel like my home anymore. It felt like a trap. Have you ever felt like your own family was hiding something from you? Stick with me. This story only gets deeper. And if you want more true stories like this, don't forget to subscribe." I looked around the table, and in that moment, I knew someone didn't want that letter to be found. The air felt heavy after Mr. Bellamy said the letter was missing, but no one else seemed to care. In fact, they looked relieved. "Let's just get on with it," Julia said, flipping her hair like it was some kind of show. So Mr. Bellamy continued. He started reading Henry's will, line by line. "To my son Daniel," he read, "I leave the fishing rods from the lake house, and the journals we wrote together." Daniel blinked. "That's it?" he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Julia leaned toward him. "What about the money? The land?" Mr. Bellamy kept going. "To my son Mark, I leave the tools in the garage and the photo albums he once loved." Mark sat up straighter. He laughed. "No offense, but I don't need rusty tools and old pictures." Erica didn't laugh. She looked like she'd just tasted something bitter. "What about the trust?" she asked. "What did Henry say about the trust?" Then it was Lisa's turn. "To my daughter Lisa, I leave the music box from my mother and the quilt her mother made." Lisa blinked back tears. I didn't ask for anything. I just wanted to be here," she whispered. Tom didn't even pretend. "That's ridiculous," he said. "Are you seriously saying he left no money?" Mr. Bellamy finally explained. "The main estate and assets were left in a protected trust. Control of that trust remains with the executor, which as stated, is Margaret. All eyes turned to me. Daniel's voice dropped. So you're saying Mom holds everything? Julia jumped in. Is that even legal? Yes, the lawyer said calmly. Henry made it very clear in the documents. He wanted Margaret to decide how and when anything would be shared. Suddenly, the room wasn't quiet anymore. It was buzzing, whispers, side eyes, tight jaws. I just sat there, quiet, watching them squirm. I knew Henry wanted it this way. He told me once, "Money brings out the truth in people. Let's see who loves us when there's nothing to gain." And now I saw it. They weren't mourning Henry. They were mourning the money they thought they'd get. Erica leaned in toward Mark. Didn't your dad say you'd get the land? He did. He promised it, Mark said. Then fight for it, she whispered. Julia stared at me, eyes sharp. If Henry trusted you with all this, where's the letter then? She was smiling, but it wasn't a kind smile. It was the kind of smile that hides a plan, and something about that made my stomach twist. Lisa spoke up, her voice soft. Maybe we should all just take some time. This isn't what Dad wanted. Tom cut her off. Your mom's holding all the power. Think, Lisa. You really think that's fair? I looked down at my hands. They were trembling, but not from fear, from anger. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as a wall between them and what they wanted. And as they started whispering again, I noticed something. A paper, folded, peeking out from Mr. Bellamy's case. It wasn't part of the will. It was handwritten. My heart skipped. Could it be the missing letter? But before I could speak, Julia said loudly, Maybe it's time we had Mom checked. You know, make sure she's thinking clearly. I froze, because the look in their eyes wasn't just greedy now. It was dangerous. That night, the house felt colder than usual. The same walls that once held laughter now echoed with silence. I could still hear Julia's voice in my head. Maybe it's time we had Mom checked. Checked. Like I was some broken machine that needed fixing. I sat in Henry's old chair and stared at his photo. He looked so calm there, smiling in that fishing hat. I whispered, Henry, they're turning on me already. And you're not here to stop them. The next morning, Daniel came over. He brought flowers, my favorite kind, but I knew they weren't for love. He sat across from me, hands folded, voice too sweet. Mom, I think everyone's just worried about you, he said. Maybe handling all these papers is too much at your age. I smiled a little. Too much? I've been paying bills since before you were born. He laughed awkwardly. Of course, but you know, Julia and I could help manage things, just for a while, just until everything's sorted. There it was, the soft start of a plan. I could almost hear Julia's words in his mouth. Later that day, I overheard something that made my blood run cold. I was walking past the guest room, and the door was half open. Inside, Mark was talking to Erica on speakerphone. He said, She's slipping. We'll get the lawyer to test her memory. If she fails, everything comes to us. Erica replied, Good, but make sure Lisa stays quiet. She's too soft for this. I stood there frozen, my own son, plotting to take everything from me. That night, Lisa called. She whispered into the phone, Mom, please don't tell them I said this, but they're meeting tomorrow. Without you. Meeting for what? I asked. She hesitated. They said they're going to talk to a doctor and your lawyer. They want to prove you're not able to manage the estate anymore. My throat tightened. My hands shook. It was happening. The betrayal Henry warned me about. I didn't sleep that night. I walked through the house, touching everything Henry and I built. Every picture, every chair, every memory. All of it suddenly felt like evidence in a case against me. I poured some tea and sat at the kitchen table until morning. Then I made a decision. If they wanted to play games, I'd play smarter. I started writing things down. Every word they said, every visit, every phone call. I wrote it all in a notebook and kept it under the sink. Then I made a decision. If they wanted to play games, I'd play smarter. I started writing things down. Every word they said, every visit, every phone call. I wrote it all in a notebook and kept it under the sink. I even started recording when they came over. My phone sat quietly on the table, capturing every fake smile and false promise. 2 days later, I went to see Mr. Bellamy. He looked nervous when I mentioned the missing letter again. "Strange," he said. "I've checked twice. It's not in the files, Mrs. Whitmore." "Margaret," I said firmly. "My name is Margaret, and I think someone's been in your office." His eyes widened. He lowered his voice. "Why do you say that?" "Because my children know things only you and Henry knew." He hesitated. And that's when I saw it. Fear. When I got home that evening, I found an envelope under my door. No name on it. Just one sentence written in black ink. "You won't win this, Margaret. Just sign the papers." I felt my knees go weak. Someone had been here, inside my house. I picked up the phone to call Daniel, then stopped. No, not him, not any of them. If they thought I was old and fragile, they were about to find out just how wrong they were. The next morning, a letter came from the court. It wasn't junk mail. It was a summons. They were trying to prove I wasn't fit to handle my own life. The envelope was thick, heavier than normal mail. My name was printed in bold. I already knew what it was before I even opened it. A court summons. They were really doing it, trying to take everything, not by asking, but by force. I sat at the table, the letter shaking in my hands. My tea had gone cold. So had my trust. Henry once said, "You raise children, not soldiers." But somehow, mine had declared war. Later that day, Lisa came over, alone. She looked tired, guilty even. "Mom," she said softly, "I didn't know they'd go this far. I thought to cut." "Hey, we're just angry." I looked at her, tears filling my eyes. "You're part of them, Lisa, whether you like it or not." She started crying too. "I'm sorry. I really am. But Tom said we have debts. Big ones. And he thinks this is our only shot." That hurt worse than the letter. Not because of the money, but because I saw fear in her eyes. The kind of fear that makes good people do bad things. I went back to Mr. Bellamy's office. I slammed the court letter on his desk. "You didn't protect me," I said. "You were supposed to protect Henry's wishes. My family is trying to erase me." He looked down, didn't speak. I leaned in. "Or maybe you knew this was coming all along." He finally whispered, "I didn't think they'd go this far, but I have a backup from Henry." He opened a locked drawer in the back of the office. Inside was a small tin box. He pulled out a sealed envelope. On the front, Henry's handwriting. "Only open if they turn against her." I clutched it in my hands like a lifeline. My heart ached. Mr. Bellamy sighed. "There's also someone Henry trusted, more than me, maybe. A friend." He said, "She'd know what to do." He gave me a name and a number. "Call her," he said. "She's been waiting." That night, I sat on my porch with Henry's letter in my lap. The sun was setting, the wind was soft, and everything felt heavy. I thought about all the birthday cakes I baked, the scraped knees I bandaged, the bedtime stories I read. Now I was just the problem to them. I opened the letter slowly. Henry's voice echoed in my head as I read his words. If you're holding this, Maggie, then I was right. I saw it coming. I hoped I was wrong. But I watched the way they looked at our money, not our memories. So I made a plan, one only you can finish. My hands were trembling again, but not from fear this time, from purpose. The next day, I drove to a small office on the edge of town. It was quiet. No signs, just a blue door and a nameplate. A. Cartwright, estate specialist. Inside sat a woman with silver hair, glasses, and a calm smile. You must be Margaret, she said. I've been waiting for you since Henry passed. My eyes widened. Why? She slid a folder across the desk. Because your husband didn't just leave you a will. He left you a weapon. She opened the folder, and inside was a second will, one no one else knew existed. And this one changed everything. I held the folder in my lap like it was made of glass. A second will. A secret one. One that Henry wrote just for me. Ms. Cartwright leaned forward. Your husband was smart. He didn't trust the first will to hold up. I opened it slowly. Henry's handwriting filled the page. Not typed, not cold, but warm and careful, like a love letter with fire in it. Margaret, if this is being read, it means they chose greed over love. So I'm choosing you. My eyes filled with tears. He'd left everything to me. The house, the land, the money. But there was more. This will had strict rules. Each child would have to meet certain conditions to receive anything. Daniel had to pay back a debt Henry secretly covered. Mark had to prove a year of honest work. Lisa had to volunteer at a shelter for 6 months. And if they failed, the estate would go to charity. Ms. Cartwright smiled. He wanted to test their hearts, not just reward their names. My heart hurt, but it also healed a little. For the first time since Henry died, I didn't feel alone. That night, I sat in Henry's study. The old desk still smelled like cedar and ink. I remembered how he used to hum while writing letters. He always said, "Words matter, Maggie. Words are forever." I opened the drawer at the bottom, one I hadn't touched in months. There was a small wooden box inside, locked, but I had the key. The same key his friend gave me. Click. Inside was a flash drive and a note. Use this if they lie. I plugged it into the old laptop. There were recordings, dozens of them. Phone calls, meetings, conversations Henry had with the lawyer, with the kids, even with the bank. They told a different story. One where Daniel begged for help and promised to pay it back. One where Mark said he'd take what's his, no matter what. One where Erica joked about putting me somewhere quiet. I covered my mouth in shock. Henry knew. He saw it coming, and he'd recorded everything. For days I went through every file, every document, every line of the new will, and when I was done, I called Mr. Bellamy. I'd like to officially file the second will, I said. Silence, then a slow, nervous breath. You're sure, Mrs. Whitmore? I smiled. Yes, and don't worry. This time, I'm not letting anyone steal what Henry left for me. The next day, I invited the whole family for dinner. No one knew what was coming. They thought I was giving in. They thought I was surrendering. Good. Let them think that. I set the table with Henry's favorite plates. I lit candles. I even made his lemon chicken recipe. As I folded the napkins, I looked up at his photo and whispered, "This one's for you, Henry. Let's show them who raised who." They walked in smiling, laughing, already thinking they'd won. But halfway through dinner, I dropped a thick envelope right in the middle of the table and said, "Let's read this together." The smell of lemon chicken filled the house, just like old times. But this time, the warmth wasn't real. I was setting a stage, and they were walking straight into it. Daniel arrived first with Julia. She was dressed like she came for a party. Red lipstick, fake smile. Then Mark and Erica, holding a bottle of wine they probably didn't pay for. Last came Lisa and Tom, quiet, unsure. "Dinner smells amazing, Mom," Daniel said, kissing my cheek. I smiled. "Let's just have one good meal together, like a family." They all sat around the table, talking about everything except Henry, laughing a little too loud, smiling a little too much. I just nodded, pretended, let them feel safe, let them show who they really are. Halfway through the meal, I stood up, reached behind me, and placed the thick envelope right in the center of the table. The room went quiet. "What's that?" Mark asked, his fork frozen midair. "A letter from your father," I said. "Actually, more than a letter. It's the truth." They looked at each other, confused, nervous, suspicious. I sat down, calm, then slowly opened the envelope and began to read. "To my children, if you are hearing this from your mother, it means I no longer trust you with what we built." Julia scoffed. "That's fake. He'd never say that." I ignored her and kept reading. "Each of you has taken without giving, lied without shame, and now I leave you with one choice: earn your share, or walk away with nothing." Daniel stood up. "This is ridiculous. That's not fair." "Not fair?" I asked quietly. "What's not fair, Daniel? That your father saw through you?" Erica narrowed her eyes. "This can't be legal." I looked at her. "It's filed. It's signed. It's real." Mark slammed his fist on the table. "He left me the land. He promised it." "He did," I said. "But only if you kept your word, which you didn't." I reached into my folder and pulled out the conditions. Typed, signed, clear as day. Each one of them would have to prove themselves. Not with words, with actions. Lisa began to cry. "I didn't know it would come to this." Tom spoke sharply. "She's bluffing." But I wasn't. Not even close. I looked around the table, at the faces I once raised, and the strangers they'd become. "You all thought I'd be easy to break," I said. "Old, alone, weak, but I am Henry's wife, and I'm not here to be erased." For a second, no one spoke. Then Julia hissed, "You're doing this out of spite." "No," I said softly. "I'm doing it out of love. Love for the life we built. Love for the truth. Love for the version of you that still had hearts, before money poisoned them." I stood up and collected the plates. Dinner was over. But I wasn't finished. Not yet. As they walked out, stunned and speechless, I turned off the lights, locked the door, and whispered to myself, "Let's see how they handle what comes next." The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Missed calls, voicemails, angry texts. Julia wrote, "You'll regret this, Margaret." Erica said, "This isn't over." They weren't just shocked now. They were scared. And scared people? They get dangerous. Later that day, Daniel showed up. No flowers this time, just fury in his eyes. "You embarrassed us," he said, slamming his hand on the kitchen counter. I didn't flinch. I just looked at him. Calm. Still. "Your father left you a chance, Daniel. Not a gift. A chance. But you threw it away. He laughed bitterly. You know what people are saying? That we got cut out like strangers, that our own mother tricked us. I didn't trick you, I said. I protected what your father built. You just thought it was yours by default. Then came the threats. Erica sent a lawyer's letter, claimed I was mentally unfit, said the new will was suspicious. But I was ready. I had recordings, emails, even bank slips signed by Mark when he used Henry's money without asking. They wanted a fight? Fine. Let them try. I filed the second will officially with the court. I attached all the evidence. I handed over every recording. And then I waited. The court date came fast. I sat there alone on one side. They sat together on the other, a row of angry children and their quiet, cold spouses. The judge read through everything, slowly, carefully. Daniel's lawyer argued first. She's not well. She's grieving. She doesn't know what she's doing. I stood up, looked the judge in the eye. My mind is clear. It's my heart that's broken. Then I handed over the flash drive. The courtroom fell silent. The judge plugged it in, played a recording. Mark's voice echoed through the speakers. She won't even see it coming. Once she signs, we sell the land. Fast. Gasps. Even Lisa covered her mouth in shock. She hadn't heard that part before. Then came another clip. Julia laughing. Old people are easy. Just push enough and they cave. The judge paused the tape, looked at them all, and then said, This will stand. Margaret Whitmore remains the legal executor of her husband's estate. I felt something in my chest. Not pride, not joy, just peace. For the first time since Henry died, I could breathe again. Outside the courtroom, Erica yelled at Mark. You told me we'd get it all. Now we've got nothing. Mark didn't even answer. He just walked away. And I didn't look back. That night, I lit a candle by Henry's photo, whispered, We did it, love. They tried to break me, but I remembered who I am. The next day, I met Lisa's daughter, Ellie, at the park. She ran up and hugged me tight. Grandma, did they stop being mean? I smiled. Let's just say, the truth finally had its turn. Then I handed Ellie a small envelope. Inside was a letter and a key. She tilted her head. What's this for? I whispered. It's for later, when it's your turn to choose who you want to be. Because I knew someday they'd all come back, and Ellie would be the one standing at the door, with the power to open it, or not. I thought it was over. I really did. But when people lose power, they don't just walk away. They try to steal it back. A week after the court ruling, I got another letter. Mark had filed a challenge. He was trying to overturn the will, said the recordings were fake, said I pressured Henry into changing it. It didn't even surprise me. But what did was what came next. I got a visit from a woman I didn't know. She had red eyes, hair tied back like she hadn't slept. Are you Mrs. Whitmore? She asked. Yes, I said gently. She looked like someone who needed more than just answers. I'm Mark's ex-assistant, she said. Or, I was. I just wanted to tell you. He's hiding things. He used your husband's accounts. He forged some signatures. My ert dropped. She handed me a folder. Keep this safe. You didn't get it from me. Then she walked away. I opened the folder that night. Inside were copies of checks, emails, and notes. All with Henry's name, but not Henry's handwriting. My hands shook. Mark hadn't just betrayed me. He betrayed his father. Even before he passed. The next morning, I went straight to my lawyer. She looked through everything. This could be fraud, she said. This isn't just about inheritance now. This is criminal. Mark's world started to crumble fast. He was called into court again. Not for the will, but for what he did before it was even read. Daniel and Julia tried to stay quiet, but once the fire started, they couldn't help but get burned too. The banks reopened old files. Turns out, Mark had borrowed money under Henry's name, and Daniel had signed off on one of the papers. They thought no one would ever look. They were wrong. Erica left Mark 2 days after the charges were announced. She packed her bags and moved in with her sister. I heard through a neighbor that she told him, "You ruined everything. I married a man, not a scam artist." Daniel started showing up at my door again. Not angry this time, but quiet, soft. "Mom, can we talk?" I let him stand on the porch. Didn't invite him in, not yet. "You were right," he said, "about all of it." I nodded. "I always was. You just didn't want to see it." He looked down at his shoes, then pulled something from his pocket. It was a check, made out to me. The exact amount Henry had once covered for him, with interest. "It's not forgiveness," I said. "I know," he whispered, "but it's a start." That night, I sat with Ellie again. She was coloring in her notebook. She looked up and said, "Grandma, are they sorry yet?" I smiled. "Some of them, but sometimes people say sorry with their mouths, and sometimes they say it with their actions." And I leaned in and said, "One day you'll face hard choices too. When you do, don't follow, lead." She looked at me, eyes wide. "Like you?" I nodded. "Just like me, because while one door was closing for my children, another was opening for my granddaughter, and she was about to discover exactly what that key unlocked." Ellie came to visit the next afternoon. She wore her favorite yellow sweater and held the envelope I gave her days ago. "Grandma," she said, holding it up, "I haven't opened it yet. I wanted to do it with you." We sat down on the porch swing. The sun was soft, the wind gentle, like the whole world had taken a breath. "Go ahead," I said, and she carefully opened it. Inside was a letter, and a small silver key. She looked at me. "Is this for a treasure box?" I laughed. "In a way, yes, but it's not filled with toys or candy. It's something more important than that." I took her hand and led her inside. We walked to Henry's old study, to the shelf with all his books. I pulled one out, an old one. Inside, behind the pages, was a small hidden drawer. "This," I said, "is your treasure." She unlocked it with the key. Inside was a stack of letters, each one with her name on it, each written by Henry. "He started writing to you the day you were born," I whispered. "He wanted you to know who he was, even if he didn't get to see you grow up." Ellie opened the first letter. She read a few lines, then hugged it to her chest. "I miss him," she said. "I do too," I replied. "Every day." She looked up at me. "Why didn't Mommy get these?" I paused, because that answer wasn't easy, but she was old enough to hear it. "Because love isn't always loud," I said. "Sometimes it's hidden in letters, and sometimes it skips a generation to find the right heart." We spent the whole afternoon reading those letters. Some were funny, some were deep. All were filled with love. And somewhere in those words, Ellie found her own voice. Later that evening, she stood in front of me with a serious face. "Grandma, I want to do something good with my life. I want to help people like you did." I felt tears rise in my eyes. "Then you already know more than most grown-ups." I walked her to the door, handed her a small envelope. Inside was a deed, a piece of land Henry had bought years ago in her name. She blinked. "This is mine?" "It's yours," I said. "But you can't sell it. You can't build on it unless it helps others." That was Henry's wish. "And now, it's yours to carry." She smiled. "I won't let you down." "I know," I whispered, "because you're the only one who never asked for anything, and yet deserved it all." And as she walked away, letter in hand, I knew the story wasn't ending. It was just changing hands. But tomorrow, there would be a knock at my door that I never expected. The knock came early, just after sunrise. I was sipping my tea by the window, watching the light hit Henry's garden, the one we planted together so many years ago. I opened the door, and there they were. Daniel, Lisa, and Mark. No spouses, no smiles. Just quiet eyes and tired faces. Daniel spoke first. "Mom, we just want to talk." I nodded slowly. "All right, but you won't find the old version of me in here anymore." They came in. No one sat right away. They just stood in the kitchen, like guests in a place they once owned. Lisa stepped forward. "I know I didn't fight for you when I should have. I didn't know how to be in the middle." I looked at her, softly. "But you were never in the middle, sweetheart. You just chose silence when I needed your voice." She nodded, tears in her eyes. Then Mark, his head down. "I messed up. Not just with the will, with everything. Dad would be ashamed of me." I sighed. "Mark, he was. But he also hoped you'd learn from it." Daniel pulled something from his coat pocket. Not money, not papers. A small picture. It was me and Henry, dancing in the backyard years ago, barefoot and laughing. "I found this in a box," he said. Didn't realize how much I missed this version of us. My hands trembled as I took the photo. "You were kids once," I whispered. "Full of love. What happened?" They didn't answer. They didn't need to. Because deep down, they already knew. We sat at the table, quiet at first. Then slowly, we talked. Not about the money, not about land or lawyers, but about memories, stories, the things we'd forgotten. They didn't ask for forgiveness, not directly, but their eyes did. And I gave it. Not for them, but for me. Because carrying anger, it's heavy, and I was ready to set it down. A week later, I stood in the garden. Ellie helped me plant a tree, right? Where Henry used to sit and hum. She asked, "Why here?" I smiled. "Because this is where things begin again." That tree, with its soft green leaves, became our new start. A place of peace, of truth, of quiet strength. My family isn't perfect now, far from it. But they're trying. And sometimes, that's enough. And Ellie? She's growing into a woman with fire in her soul and love in her hands. One day, this story will be hers to tell. And when that time comes, I hope she tells it not as a warning, but as a lesson. Because the things we leave behind, they're not just in bank accounts or papers. They live in hearts, in stories, in quiet rooms where someone finally feels seen. Have you ever had to protect your truth, even from the ones you love most? I'd love to hear your story in the comments, because sometimes the strongest legacy is simply being brave enough to tell the truth.